assets and options available for the Mavs to upgrade the team? And is there a particular player that you would want? Also, we got Bruce Bochy coming up in about 20 minutes.
I like this segment, and I would like to say, in a perfect world, I have no clue how to get them. The Mavs are limited with their resources and draft picks. But, man, to me, Mikal Bridges in Brooklyn would be so perfect for this team. Their number 3 guy, like P.J. Washington, would be a starter still. But if you had as your wings to go with Luka and Kyrie, if you had Mikal Bridges and P.J. Washington along with your 2 centers, I think that would be, I won't say the perfect team, but I think you have constructed a team that everybody's like, oh, crap. They got a great kind of two-way player, a little bit more defensive, doesn't need the ball to be successful. He went to Brooklyn and went from like 15 points in Phoenix as kind of the number 4 guy there to 26 points a game as the number 1. So you know it's in him.
And that team was pretty terrible too. Right.
But he's like right around 18, 19 points, but he's been on a team where he's played with Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, so he knows how to play like kind of on a team that he's not the number 1 and thrive and be successful. So he wouldn't at 27 years old go, I need 20 points a game. He knows how to play great team basketball. He would guard, or at least try to start off guarding the best player on the other team when they're kind of a guard wing situation. I'd love Mikal Bridges, but I have no clue how. I don't even think he's available. That's the thing, is we don't know yet who's really available. The rumors haven't come out yet that we know who's available on the trade market.
And that's another thing. Whenever you say not realistic, is it okay that I immediately think because of your lack of draft assets and salary
you can trade
cap,
one draft pick, one first round?
Is there a player that everybody is going to wait on for all these things? You know, like a
free agent, you mean?
Yeah, that kind of changes everything. You know how we've had years where LeBron or maybe even Kevin Durant has held the NBA hostage, waiting for them to sign before everybody's going to make moves.
Let me look it up. Is the best Paul George? I mean, LeBron is like a free agent. LeBron, I mean, maybe.
But we don't think he's going to leave, right?
I don't think so.
Paul George's player option just like LeBron. So I feel like those, and Tyrese Maxey's restricted. So I'm just kind of curious.
He's gonna get maxed out.
Harden or DeRozan.
I don't think those guys are
stopped down. Yeah. Because Siakam just signed his max. And so to your point, I'm thinking about, Klay Thompson, James Harden, DeMar DeRozan, the unrestricted. Those don't feel like market stoppers or league stoppers like the other people that you were bringing up.
Yeah, so I wonder if things will move a lot faster because of it, and if those things start to happen in a more timely manner, which would be great because the NBA had a surge, especially around here, for sure. So, I guess DeRozan. Yeah, give me DeRozan, Kevin.
I think DeRozan would be a great fit on this team.
I am losing the rules now. I'm just confused because they've changed them recently on when you're over the cap, how you can trade for a free agent. I think they've made it really tough to do because DeRozan being a free agent, I think that it becomes very tough, but I'm not 100% sure. I just think they've made more rules to make it tougher when you're like the Mavericks over the cap number, and then even over a threshold where Derek Jones Jr. becomes kind of impossible to sign unless you make some moves to create a full mid-level exception. I don't know if I'd like DeRozan too, but then I wonder this: do the Mavericks not want him because he doesn't shoot 3 pointers?
I was about to ask that.
He's a mid-range king.
He's not enough of a 3-point shooter to do that. But does that then lighten the load for Kyrie to be a mid-range driver kind of guy? But I think that when Kyrie's at his best, he's doing all 3, and that's where you're like, okay, you don't want to take that away from him.
And the assets really are limited because I'm going to run through a couple of things for you guys, and this is where the NBA salary cap is, man, if you think the NFL is confusing, the NBA is pretty damn confusing as well. The Mavericks have a $4.0 million and a $4.9 million trade exception. However, you can't use those exceptions if they take you past the first apron, and the Mavericks are $3.6 million below the first apron salary cap. And so
those are useless.
You have to be already past the first apron.
Unless you get rid of some salary.
Exactly.
Got you.
Exactly. And so, like, while you look at that as a potential asset, you're like, not really unless you move some money. And what's the money you want to move? Because I understand like in terms of trades and everything, but I was just focusing on guaranteed and non-guaranteed because I don't think they want to move off either one of these. Exum's contract becomes guaranteed on June 29th for $3.1 million, and Hardy's becomes guaranteed for $2 million the next day. Do you think I'm safe in assuming, especially at those prices, both of those players will be back?
Yes.
Okay. So, because that's the easiest thing right there. It's like, oh, you don't bring one of them back, you don't bring both of them back, and then you could theoretically use both of your trade exceptions. Well, then that's not what you want to do. And so those trade exceptions, until you move something out, are really not actually there for you, or not there for you at that level. Mike brought up, you realistically can only trade one first-round draft pick. And that's kind of your ammunition. And that's why, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, the names of Hardy, Prosper, Green have come up because if you're like, this is all I have.
And they can be valued kind of like first-round picks because of their use.
Exactly. And so if you're like, hey, I'm looking to unload Tim Hardaway Jr., and you're like, well, why would we do that? Oh, it's expiring contract. What else you got? And then that's where you wonder if like what the kickers will be, or if they'll go all out and say you can get a first round pick and Hardy and Green, however you construct it, because you have a guy that we just really, really want. I know you'd have to even out the money and everything because the Mavericks are like right up against the luxury tax.
Did Malik Monk take himself out of this category because he's going to be too expensive after what looks like a really great year from him?
I would like to have him.
Because he's unrestricted,
Do you have him up right now?
Yeah.
How tall is he?
6'3", 200 pounds.
That's the only thing that I don't feel like works because of the lack of height with Kyrie, like putting both those guys on the court at the same time. You can. I'm not saying you can't.
And Nico specifically went and got length this year, aside from Kyrie.
And Monk, I don't want to say is a good defensive player, but he gives good effort, I feel like, a lot defensively, and he's a great scorer. I feel like I need that score to be like 6'6".
I gotcha. Like a Brandon Ingram.
Well, I was just looking up this person. He's a free agent.
You know, I'd love Brandon Ingram.
If we can make that happen, hell yeah.
And the Pelicans might be open to kind of moving some of what they're doing around, but then you start getting into how do you match the salary?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Also, with a team like, let's say, a Houston, a New Orleans, they're outside in the Western Conference kind of looking in at the four teams we mentioned earlier in the show. Denver, Dallas, Minnesota, Oklahoma City. That seems to be the cream of the crop in the Western Conference. And then the other teams are kind of looking, how do we compete with those teams? Do you think like in New Orleans, or if you're trying to work a deal with Houston or something, go, how much better do we want to make the team we're trying to catch?
Yeah, that's absolutely in that area. But when it comes to their own economics and what they are having to deal with, it makes they're trying to figure their situation out first.
My only question was going to be, are they then close enough to have such considerations? That's what I'm wondering, if they're so far back that they're like, we don't need to worry about them right now. Like, we need to worry about bringing in better assets as much as we possibly can. Just curious about that. I've seen this name pop up multiple times. And obviously, he was just involved in a trade. OG Anunoby is somebody that has come up time and again.
He's off the market, but in a perfect world, right? New York went all in on him.
Yes, they did. And so they're not moving off of him, but multiple people brought him up. So I did just want to say, I don't think that will happen.
The name that we keep seeing, Kevin, and I think Mike shut it down. I think most people agree that it should be shut down, is Klay Thompson. Go chase him is what I keep seeing.
He wants a 3-year deal too, and I don't even know if he has a year left.
And like it's not going to be for easy money.
He is not Klay Thompson anymore either.
Okay, let me ask you something then. Let's just say he wants to say in your face, Warriors, I still got it, or whatever. Would you do the tax mid-level exception?
For 1 year, yes.
But what if he was like, I want it over 3 years?
It's not the end of the world if you're saying, are you saying like the tax mid-level at like 11 million?
No. The tax mid-level exception here is 5.2 for the Mavericks. So
3 for 15 approximately. Yeah.
If he was willing to be that cheap, why would he leave Golden State?
I'd be mad at them.
Sometimes I think it's an ego thing, right? Like, I'm with you for sure. Wouldn't you rather just stay? Wouldn't
he go to the Lakers because of his father and where he grew up?
That is probably a good point. My point is, it would have to be pretty low. He doesn't bring it like that defensively. Obviously, you saw his numbers start to fall from a shooting perspective. He's had a hell of a career.
Yeah, Hall of Famer.
And it's all contextualized, right? Because if you are somehow magically getting him for 3 for 15, what he does is well above that level.
I would agree with
that. But the
that.
problem is the full expectation is the reason why he would not continue with the Warriors is because he still values himself at a place the Warriors aren't willing to pay.
Yeah.
And that honestly his game probably does not necessarily justify for a lot of other places.
You said perfect fit, and I don't think this is the perfect fit, but he would definitely take over Tim Hardaway Jr.'s spot I think he's better, would be Buddy Hield.
There it is.
Who lives here. He lives in North Dallas.
Yeah. I was just about to bring him up. That's why I was excited.
He's a free agent. He averaged in his career he's 31, so he's still a good player. He's averaged 15.5 points for his career at 40% 3-point shooting.
Oh.
But he's 6'4" and not a great defensive player.
Not a great anything
So he'd be your
else, really.
sixth man coming off the bench for points. The other thing too is when I watch him, and Reggie, maybe you have more of a scouting report than I do on him. I feel like he's not much of his own shot creator. He's more of a catch and shoot guy.
Is that terrible for this team, though?
Which is fine if Luka can find you and you can make them.
In a perfect world, I want this guy to be able to dribble.
Okay.
All right. But it's not perfect. So do you want the ability to knock down threes more? Like, where's that balance?
Right. And I think this is where Nico has to look and go, I probably can't get the perfect play. I probably can't get, to me, Mikal Bridges would be like a perfect player that can do a lot. Do you want more of a defensive guy? Like, I'll give you another person who I don't know how available he is. Would you rather have Buddy Hield, who's a much better shooter, than Dorian Finney-Smith? But Dorian Finney-Smith is the 6'8", 6'7", more defensive guy who can knock down an open three, but he can't dribble and pass at all.
Yeah. I feel like there were times where just making shots just went empty.
And Dorian Finney-Smith is not a good 3-point shooter.
Yeah,
He's an open 3-point shooter, but not one. Like Buddy Hield can get hot and make 6 or 7 3-pointers in a game and be an on your face guy.
He's 22nd in history with 3-pointers made, I believe, right now, and he could be top 15 by the end of this year.
Wow.
So like that's one of the I think there's kind of that close. So again, you're lacking a little length, you're lacking some defense, but you have a guy that is a knockdown 3-point.
We got to go to break here, but you didn't name your guy Caruso, but he's not available.
He's not gettable. Look, if you because supposedly there was rumblings that in this draft, Chicago got offered a top 10 pick for Caruso, and they were like, no dice. But all right, Alex Caruso would be an amazing fit here. He would fit the exact defensive mentality that you want. I just don't think that's doable. We talked about off air Gary Trent Jr. He's
him a lot.
He's about to get paid, so I don't think that's going to be a viable option either. And that's the trouble. We'll learn more in the next few weeks.
It is.
Who is and is not more likely to be available. And the one good thing, going back to one of our segments from a couple hours ago, I think the Mavericks have shown creativity to be able to pull a lot of this stuff off. So as we hear more and more about, it looks like this person's available, which you probably will starting next week, right?
Yeah, and we'll find out how great of a run this was that maybe agents are telling their clients, hey, did you see what Derek Jones Jr. just did to his career?
And he's about to get paid.
Go to Dallas.
If Derek Jones Jr. is not coming back, which he's probably not, you want to root for him to get a hell of a contract, right? You want to root for him to get his 4 for 60 or whatever the case might be, so you can be like, see, 1 year Luka. Look what happened.